Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Iswariza Natasha binti Yusuf. CAT matrix number 07DKN19F1087. So today I'm gonna show you a video simulation of highway laboratory, which is Flakiness index and elongation index laboratory. This video describes step-by-step procedures to conduct flakiness index and elongation index tests for aggregates. The flakiness index and elongation index tests for aggregates are conducted using BS 812 Part 1. In this video, the flakiness index test will be described, followed flakiness index test. The aggregate particle is considered flaky if its thickness is less than 0.6 times the mean sieve size of the size fraction. Flaky aggregate is not desired due to improper orientation of aggregate particle during mixing and breaks during compaction, thus affects load carrying capacity of the asphalt mix. Objective: to determine the flakiness index of aggregate sample, and the apparatus is thickness gauge, BS test sieve, mechanical sieve shaker, tray, and balance. Procedure: initially, weight can of the individual sieve size used and secure a representative sample of aggregate. Conduct sieve analysis on approximately 2 kg of aggregate sample with using the selected BS test. Discard all the aggregate retained on the 63.0 mm BS test sieve and all aggregate passing the 6.30 mm BS test sieve. Weigh each of individual size fractions retained on the sieves other than 63 mm and store them in separate trays with their size marked on the trays. Sum the masses for all size fractions M1, calculate the individual percentage retained aggregate on each of the various sieves, discard any aggregate which the mass is 5% or less of M1, record the mass remaining M2, which is the total weight of the aggregate excluding the weight of the sizes of all 5%. Using the gauge, select the thickness gauge appropriate to the size fraction under test and gauge each particle separately by hand. Refer to Table 1 of Highway Laboratory Test Manual. Combine and weigh all the particles passing the gauge M3. Calculate the flakiness index. The flakiness index shall be reported to the nearest whole number. Elongation index test. The aggregate particle is considered elongated if its length is more than 1.8 times the mean dimension length of the size fraction. Elongated aggregate is not desired due to improper orientation of aggregate particle during mixing and break during compaction, thus reduces the strength of the asphalt mix. Objective: to determine the elongation index of aggregate sample. The elongation index test requires the following apparatus: length gauge, BS test sieve, mechanical sieve shaker, tray, and balance. Procedure: initially weight each of the individual sieve size used in the secure a representative sample of aggregate. Conduct sieve analysis on approximately 2 kg of aggregate sample with using the selected BS test sieve size. Discard all aggregate retained on the 50 mm BS test sieve and all aggregate passing the 6.30 mm BS test sieve. Weigh each of individual size fraction retained on the sieve other than 50 mm BS test sieve, and store them in separate trays with their size mark on the trays. Sum the masses for all size fractions. M1. Calculate the individual percentage retained aggregate on each of the various sieves. Discard any aggregate which the mass is 5% or less of M1. Record the mass remaining. Using the gauge, select the laying gauge appropriate to the size fraction under the test and gauge each particle separately by hand. Refer to Table 2 of Highway Laboratory Test Manual. Combine and weigh all elongated particles passing the gauge M3. Calculate the elongation index. The elongation index shall be reported to the nearest whole number. Thank you for your time.